everyone, all of our Century Health participants. We're glad you're here. My name is Elizabeth Graves, and I'm an LCSW and the mental health team lead here at Century Health. And today I wanted to talk to you about the topic of anger. Anger is something that I think we all deal with to some degree or another. And sometimes we're not really sure how to deal with it or what the best way to deal with it is. It's often a reaction to stress or failure or, injustice. And it can range from mild irritation to a full-blown rage and some violent behaviors. And it's normal. Anger is a normal emotion. And at times it's an appropriate response depending on our situation. But we have to be able to manage it and keep it in check and keep control of our anger. Anger can be caused by external factors, humiliation, loss, even bullying. Or it can be caused by internal factors such as frustration or failure. And so it's not always a reaction to our present circumstances. Really, sometimes it can be unconscious. We can get triggered about a past situation and it can cause us to have anger about that. And maybe we don't even know what we're really angry about. For some reason, we got triggered. We haven't put it together that it's due to a past situation. And we don't know, why am I so angry that, I didn't get a strawberry shake? Who knows? It could be from a past event, something that happened that you got triggered and you're just unsure of. But typically, anger has less to do with the event, and it's more about how we react to the event. Certain negative thought patterns usually come before an outburst of anger. So let's look at those. Blaming. We can blame someone if it's somebody else's fault because we don't want to have any shame or to avoid the responsibility. Sometimes we can overgeneralize and we can get that black and white thinking of this always happens to me or this never happens to you. And when we overgeneralize, it makes the situation worse than it really is. If we're rigid, when we can't really reconcile what's happening, we're having what they call cognitive dissonance, then we can be very rigid and have a low tolerance for frustration. And so we get angry pretty quickly. When we are mind reading and we think that someone is intentionally trying to hurt us or disrespect us, we can feel pretty angry. Or sometimes anger is kind of when someone's collecting those straws and we get that last one and it causes everything to break. So sometimes we don't even realize, I think this happens with our spouses, where our spouse may do something over and over and over again. And finally they do it for the last time and that's the last straw. And we boil up and kind of have a blow up when really, if we had addressed it in the beginning when it was just a minor irritation, it might not have gotten to that point of breaking us. So anger can help us relieve stress because it can motivate us to solve a problem instead of enduring it. For example, if we're caught in a traffic jam, we can sit there and yell and scream at all the cars around us, but they can't hear us and they're not going to move any faster. But it can motivate us to find a faster route home, right? And sometimes when we're in a dangerous scenario, fight and flight kicks in and that can help us stay safe. And so sometimes that fight and anger can help us stay safe. And sometimes people have difficulty expressing their feelings, and certain emotions like fear and sadness aren't acceptable, especially among men. And so sometimes their defense mechanism is to use anger. That's very common as well. It allows us to avoid certain feelings that are not comfortable. Anger is not a good or a bad emotion, okay? It's just like anything else. It's the consequence of how we react to that emotion. Some people let their anger out by yelling and screaming and they feel better, but outbursts cannot become a habit, or they shouldn't become a habit. They can be, but they shouldn't be. And we want to make sure that our anger doesn't turn to aggression. Sometimes people have passive aggressive behaviors where that's how they deal with their anger, which can really hurt relationships if you're consistently passive aggressive to someone, especially as an adult in the workplace. That passive aggressive behavior is not an appropriate way to deal with your anger. Also, anger can cause us to have physical health problems. We can develop headaches, rapid breathing, pounding heart. We're consistently feeling angry. We don't know how to deal with it. We try to tamp it down, but our body is going to reject that. And it's going to say, okay, if you're not going to somehow release it in a healthy way, then we're just going to absorb it. And that negative feeling is going to be absorbed in negative ways in your body. High blood pressure, right, is the big one. We also can tend to direct anger inward, where we have self-criticism and we can develop a low self-esteem, and we don't want that to happen. Sometimes people get really overwhelmed with their emotions of anger, and they may need to do something like anger management therapy. If you find yourself consistently feeling angry, that may be an option. Genders experience anger differently. Men are often faced with a stigma for showing sadness or fear, so they would choose to go with anger because we expect our society, our cultural norms tell us that we should expect that from men, that because they have all this testosterone, it's okay for them to act out in anger. But it's not. Women often, we face a stigma for being angry. So we're going to tamp that down, and that's going to end up looking like resentment for us. There are some ways that you can work on controlling your anger. Therapy is really a great way to help people control their anger. You want to go into therapy, figure out where is my anger coming from? What are my triggers? Deal with that root cause so that you can be able to let go of some of that anger. You may have unprocessed trauma. Anger can show up a lot as a trauma symptom. If you are having other feelings, like we suggested earlier, of sadness and fear, you're acting out in anger so that you can avoid that sadness and that fear, especially in grief, right? Anger is one of the stages. And so sometimes we can deal with that feeling a little bit better than our sadness and our grief. So let's be angry. And that's understandable in grief, but we don't want to live in that anger. Just like we don't want to live in the sadness, we have to process through those stages. Another one is aggression and assertiveness. I think many times people confuse assertive and aggressive, and they combine them or say they're the same thing, and they're really actually not. So understanding healthy, assertive ways to deal with our anger, set boundaries with people before we get to that piece of anger and aggressive, okay? Cognitive behavioral therapy is a great way to deal with anger. There's what's called cognitive restructuring, where you're really challenging some distorted thinking patterns, where we talked about that black and white thinking of this never happens to me or this always happens to me. That's a distorted thinking pattern. And so we want to pull back and go, wait a minute, maybe it's not always. Maybe it's some, but it's not always. And that can help us to pull back and dial back that anger a little bit. There are some relaxation techniques that I want to encourage you to look at my video on anxiety that's also going to be presented, because there's a lot of good relaxation techniques in there to be able to calm yourself down. We have a 4-7-8 breathing technique that I mentioned in that video, where you inhale 4 seconds, hold it for 7, and exhale 8. That can really help. You can do meditation, exercise. Hobbies can improve your mood. Looking at time management and journaling are all some ways to deal with that. But we definitely, when you are talking with someone or in an argument with someone and you're feeling your anger, one of the things you want to do is continue to use I statements about how you were feeling. I felt hurt. I felt like you were attacking me last night. But more, you don't want to say you were attacking me. You want to say that's how I felt. I realize it may not be accurate. Maybe it was, but if you come at it from an I perspective of I statements instead of you, that's also going to help that conversation so that it doesn't continue to escalate. If you're feeling like you're having some of these feelings of anger and not really sure where to go with it, I would first try your relaxation techniques. And if those are not really working for you on a consistent basis, then I would reach out. Century Health has a great body of therapists. We would love to talk with you and see if there's maybe some trauma, maybe just some other issues where maybe some distorted thinking patterns, maybe it's situational and you're dealing with grief. So please reach out. We would love to support you. So I hope this has been helpful, and check out our other videos for Mental Health Awareness Month. Thanks.